1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Give me a break, give me a break. Break me off a piece of that Kit Kat bar. Give me a break, give me a break. Break me off a piece of that Kit Kat bar. The chocolate crispy taste gonna make your day. And wherever you go, you hear the people say, give me a break, give me a break. Break me off a piece of that Kit Kat bar. Have a break, have a Kit Kat.
More people, more devices, more AI. The way we live today takes a lot of energy. Wind and solar are powerful, but not always available. That's where natural gas comes in, with reliable energy whenever it's needed. Companies like Energy Transfer work behind the scenes, safely transporting these resources to facilities across the country through a network of underground pipelines. Learn more at ittakes.energy.com.
There's a fire inside you can't ignore. Stand still? Not a chance. You're a lifelong learner who's come this far. Now, we're here to help you keep going further. Capella University. What can't you do? Visit capella.edu to learn more.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Kilowatt, a podcast about electric vehicles, renewable energy, autonomous driving, and much, much more. My name is Bodie, and I am your host. On today's episode, we have a lot of news. So I mentioned last episode that I was going to take a little bit of a break so that I could spend some time with my family. My kids are out of school now. We're going to do some hiking, fun stuff, just family stuff. And I wanted to have time where I wasn't recording. I was just hanging out with them. Unfortunately, because the way that life works is I've only got one episode actually recorded out of the 4. This would be the second one. So I still need to record 2 more episodes over the next couple of days. So it's not going to be exactly like all free time. But yeah, anyway, it will be a good time. And by allowing me to kind of take a break, it really helps. So thank you very much. Starting to get a little burned out, not gonna lie. In terms of other things that I'm going to be doing on my break, I'm finally getting around to responding to more emails. I think I only have maybe 7 or 8 more emails to respond to. I responded to quite a few this morning, in between putting this show together. So, if I don't respond to you within a couple of days and you're expecting a response back, please let me know, because I don't like leaving anybody unresponded to. If you take the time to send me an email, I feel an obligation to take the time to reply back to you. That's kind of, I just think that's good manners. So, although I don't mind when other people don't respond to me when I email them. So it's, whatever. This is just how I feel. I feel an obligation to do it. So if for some reason by, let's say, next Monday, you have not received an email from me and you were expecting one, just send me a note to remind me, because I might have missed it. It's been a lot of email inbox sorting the last couple of days. So I might have accidentally deleted something I didn't mean to. One more little bit before we get into our news. If you could do me a favor while you're listening to this podcast, is go to wherever you got your podcast, or, wherever you listen to your podcast, and rate and review this show. That would be really appreciated. Just because, one, it's probably a good idea for me to ask that more often than I do. And 2, let me read to you I have, 43 reviews. Here are just some of the reviews that I've gotten so far. This was 8 years ago, and I've been doing this podcast for almost 10. Helpful review of the news. That was from Mason. So Mason, thank you very much. This next one was from Alice in Sheridan 3 weeks ago. Tesla dominates the EV market, so it's easy to overlook the plethora of options we have available to us. Bodie keeps us informed, which was very nice. And Allison goes on to say more. And then we have a very nice, great job, always insightful. That's very nice. And then this next one came 3 years ago. It just says unions, 1 star, just a pro-union podcast, which that is untrue. I am a pro-union podcast host, but I'm not a pro-union podcast. I have said many times on this podcast that as a proud member of a union, sometimes we cause more problems than we solve. Not always, just sometimes. Anyway, you got some great works, amazing show. Kilowatt works for me. And here's one from 8 years ago. Stunned. What a dour and cynical show. Says something negative and then says, what do I know? I actually had to turn it off. Just a constant aphasic search for negativity. Well, I mean, that might be true. And then the last one here, guy literally reads a headline and gives half-informed opinions, which he admits to not being fully aware of the details. Worst of all, he found the need to announce every single freaking sip of alcohol he took. Dude, podcast or drink, don't do both. Now, I will agree with this. This was early on in the podcasting, and I was very nervous. So I used to enjoy a little bit of alcohol with the show. That's also when I drank a lot more than I do now. So fair criticism. Anyway, what I'm trying to do with this is please go leave a review. It'd be great if it's funny. It doesn't have to be 4 or 5 stars. It could be 1 star if that's really what's in your heart. But yeah, rate and review the show. I need some cover for the pro-union thing. Again, I am pro-union. This podcast is neutral. All right. Now, having said all that, we have a really big show because what I did was I had 180 some articles in my queue. I whittled those down to around 33. That doesn't mean I have 33 different stories. I just have 33 different sources that I got information from. And then I put those into the show notes. So just so you know, it's not as scary as it might sound, but normally we do like, I don't know, 6 to 8 stories. So it's going to be a little bit of a bigger show today just because I am going, we're not doing news for a while. So I thought I might as well clear my inbox and catch up on it. And I'm happy to say I have 0 stories in my inbox. I did not push the button to retrieve more stories before I started recording because otherwise I'd never finish. But as of the time of this recording and not hitting the refresh my feeds button, I have completely cleared out my inbox when it comes to the news feeds that I follow. All right, let's go ahead and start off with our EV news. Volterra and Revell are partnering up to bring DC fast charging to fleets. And specifically, it's going to be fleets, rideshare drivers, and robotaxis. So this won't be available. These DC fast chargers won't be available to the general public. This is a new venture that will continue under the Volterra brand name, and Revell will just kind of disappear into the sunset. But the CEO of Revell, whose name is Frank Regg, he will become the CEO of the new Volterra company. So this is what he said about the merger. He said both companies have spent years building charging infrastructure for fleet operators in dense cities, and combining forces is a natural next step to scale faster in key markets. The new Volterra will have around 1,000 charging stalls in 11 different cities. Now, that's not nothing. It pales in comparison to, what Electrify America has and what Tesla has, but they're very specific to rideshare drivers, robotaxis, and fleets. So, we'll kind of keep an eye on it and see where it goes. Lucid is recalling the Lucid Air Pure because it might lose power when you're driving it. This affects 2039 Lucid Pures built between September 2023 and December 2024. And the issue is because of a damaged inverter. I don't know why I said that. So word inverter. There's a switching module in the inverter that can become damaged due to the vibrations created by the motor. And when that happens, it could cause the Pure to lose power. So Lucid is working on a recall for that, and I'm sure you'll be getting something in the mail stating as such if you have one of those vehicles. Orders for the Slate pickup truck will open on June 24th. That's exciting. What's not exciting is they're taking a $300 non-refundable deposit if you are wanting to pre-order one of these trucks. Now, you might be saying to yourself, wait a minute, I put $50 down on this truck to pre-order. Does that mean I'm not going to get the money back? Because they said it was refundable. Well, in your situation, the $50 that you put down to get in line is refundable. But then if you want to actually buy the truck, you'll have to put down a $250 non-refundable down payment, I guess. What is it called? Deposit. There we go. You have to put down a $250 deposit, and then you will be able to buy the truck. Actually, the people who put down the $50 deposit first, the refundable one, those are the people that are going to be first in line to actually get a Slate pickup. But June 24th is the day. As of right now, for everybody else that didn't put down the pre-order, that's who the $300 non-refundable deposit applies to. Now, we don't have an official price yet for the Slate. We know it's going to be sub $30,000, or we assume it is because that's what they said. We'll see what happens when they actually release the vehicle, but we're going to find out the official price on June 24th, which is the day the pre-orders start. Speaking of deliveries, Rivian is set to deliver the Rivian R2 on June 9th, and those are going to be like early reservation holders. If you didn't put in, within the first hour, you're probably not getting it on June 9th, but that's when they're going to start, is on June 9th. And I honestly cannot wait to start seeing these cars driving around. I'm super stoked about it. I think I don't know. There's a certain amount of stalking that I do, not creepy stalking. I mean, I guess all stalking could be considered creepy, but I like to look at these cars and kind of, pull up beside them, get behind them, just overall try to get a good look at the car without seeming creepy, which, well, as I explain it, it sounds creepy. Not gonna lie. What's not creepy is based on Rivian's EPA range information or data filings. The R2 matches the efficiency of the Model Y performance. Now, I'm not going to go through all of the numbers because, those EPA numbers are, not necessarily real life. So as these cars come out and as people start testing them and we'll kind of get a good comparison from a couple of reliable sources, we'll see if that's true. In other Rivian news, their chief of software, Wasim bin Said, said that CarPlay and Android Auto are obsolete because of AI-defined cars. Now, I'm going to be honest, I think it is totally fine for a company not to include CarPlay or Android Auto when, they're building a car. I think it's a mistake, but I think it's completely fine. But I think what a lot of car companies are underestimating is the connection that people have with the smartphones, and specifically the apps that they use on their smartphone. It's just more of an intimate experience. So I think that CarPlay and Android Auto certainly have their place. They're also not obsolete. I think that's an arrogant way of looking at it. Is how I should have probably said that in the beginning. Let's see. Stellantis is considering building Chinese EVs in North America. Now, they wouldn't be building it under a Stellantis brand, which I actually said this, a couple months ago when we talked about this initially, when Stellantis was going to use a factory in Canada to build some of their North American brands, and then they decided not to. I said I wouldn't be surprised if they brought in something from Leap Motors and rebranded it as a Dodge or Jeep or Chrysler product. Well, it turns out they might be using their factory in Canada to build, just Leap Motors vehicles. which is interesting. Now, none of this will happen in the United States, and we probably won't see these cars in the U.S. unless somebody from there is vacationing, or maybe they bought it in Canada and drove down here. We'll kind of see how that goes. I would imagine that at some point in time, this will be something that the U.S. stops if that happens, or you have to get a special waiver, and we'll talk about some of that stuff later in the show. But yeah, sounds like Stellantis is going to start bringing over Chinese brands to North America, not to the U.S., to North America, which means Mexico and Canada. This is a big if, though. It does not mean that they are 100%. This is their plan. It's an if, not a win. Couple BYD stories here. BYD is planning on bringing all solid state batteries to the market in 2027. That is not to say that they are bringing, every new car that they build in 2027 will be solid state batteries. That is to say that it's not a semi-solid state battery. It is a true solid state battery. And their goal, like I said, is to have them in cars in 2027. I would imagine that's not going to be in a bunch of cars. It's going to be in a few cars by 2027. But this is, we seem to be getting closer. This is something that other car companies are testing out. We have semi-solid state batteries and all that stuff. So we'll keep an eye on it, see where it goes. BYD also announced that they're going to take the responsibility if your car gets into an accident when it is operating in its self-driving mode. So BYD's autonomous driving software package is called God's Eye, which I have always thought is a weird name for a lot of different reasons. One of which is that this thing could potentially, one of the reasons why we don't have Chinese connected cars here in the US is because of spying reasons. And this is a car that could literally spy on you, it's not just BYD, any car with this technology could do that. I just think it's just a weird name to have cameras and potentially microphones and a bunch of other stuff everywhere recording everything that you do. Anyway, if a driver is using God's Eye and gets into an accident, BYD will accept the liability and cover the cost of the accident. There are some stipulations, so this is only available in China. You have to be using God's Eye version 5.0. You have to be using Navigate on Autopilot, although it does sound like there's some other features, and I'm not super familiar with their software package, but it does seem like there's some other features in which you're covered, but Navigate on Autopilot for sure. And then you have to be in compliance with a bunch of different regulations. I'm sure if, you activate the Navigate on Autopilot feature and then you get in the back seat and you get in an accident, BYD is probably not going to cover it in that situation. God's Eye Navigate on Autopilot has to be activated at the time of the accident. And this is only for new car buyers, kinda. So if you buy a car now and it comes with the God's Eye 5.0, then it sounds like you're good for life. If you've already owned a BYD vehicle and you upgrade the software package to 5.0, then it sounds like you get a year covered for free. It didn't say anything about having to pay after that. But if you buy a new car and you get this automatically when it comes with the car, and then on top of that, you don't have to pay for any extra insurance. So it's not like if you buy a Tesla and you go and buy Tesla insurance, like you have your regular commercial insurance, and then that's for when you're just driving around like an animal, like just with your hands and your feet and your eyes. But if you are using God's mode, or God's Eye version 5.0, and you're driving around, you get in an accident, then that's when BYD takes that liability. And they will cover they'll cover all costs associated with an at-fault accident. So that includes repairs, property damage, and personal injury. And then also, it doesn't there's no payout cap. So it's not like they'll cover up to $10,000 or anything like that. There's no cap. So that's cool. And it should not affect, if you're using Navigate on Autopilot feature, it should not affect the premiums for your other commercial insurance that you're actually paying for. This sounds cool. I don't think I don't think this will be something that Tesla does, but we'll see. It won't be something that Tesla does. But I don't know much about the laws in China, right? To say that I know nothing, I know next to nothing about the different laws in China. But it does seem like it's cheaper to pay this out when people are operating in your software package, your autonomous driving mode. It seems cheaper just to pay people out in this way than it does to get sued afterwards. I guess they could still get sued, but if you look at, I don't know, a recent a Tesla judgment, there was a fatal autopilot crash, and the family of the victim, they were awarded $243 million from Tesla, and I believe Tesla is fighting that. But $243 million is a lot of money. And I asked Gemini, based on the average cost of an accident, how many accidents could that have covered? Now, keep in mind, there are lots of accidents every single day, especially here in the US. But we are talking about accidents for a specific car company in a specific, country. So these numbers in some cases seem low, but if you just break it down to one company, I don't think they're as low as they seem. So if we use $243 million in a fund, we could, on average, cover 8,678 accidents if you combine all of the accidents, potential accidents that are out there. If you include property damage and no injuries, then we could cover 42,631 accidents. If we looked at accidents with injuries only, that would be 9,000 accidents. Accidents with evident injuries, which I'm going to guess is more serious injuries, 5,522. Accidents with disabling injuries, it would cover 1,455, and it would cover about 124 fatal accidents. Just that $243 million. So, I don't know if these numbers are good or bad, but, they're just interesting to look at. And again, will Tesla follow suit? Probably not. I have been wrong before.
You didn't start a business just to keep the lights on. You're here to sell more today than yesterday. You're here to win. Lucky for you, Shopify built the best converting checkout on the planet. Like the just one tapping, ridiculously fast acting, sky-high sales stacking, champion of checkouts. That's the good stuff right there. So if your business is in it to win it, win with Shopify. Start your free trial today at shopify.com/win.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Give me a break. Give me a break. Break me off a piece of that Kit Kat bar. Give me a break. Give me a break. Break me off a piece of that Kit Kat bar. The chocolate crispy taste gonna make your day. And wherever you go, you hear the people say, give me a break. Give me a break. Break me off a piece of that Kit Kat bar.
Have a break? Have a Kit Kat.
Who helps America go farther, fly higher, dream even bigger? People do. Since 1879, our people have been more than a source of energy. They've been a source of progress. Today, that same progress is helping deliver record U.S. energy production, fueling the workers, the makers, the boundary pushers, and risk takers who spark the breakthroughs that move America forward. Learn more about what our people do at chevron.com/USA 250.
There's a fire inside you can't ignore. Stand still? Not a chance. You're a lifelong learner who's come this far. Now, we're here to help you keep going further. Capella University. What can't you do? Visit capella.edu to learn more.
Let's move on to another Chinese EV maker, Xpeng or Xpeng. I'm going to say Xpeng, but I think it's Xpeng. Anyway, they started mass producing Robotaxis in Guangzhou, China recently. This is going to be a completely developed in-house Robotaxi with level 4 autonomous driving capability, which is impressive. Although I did note that it still has a steering wheel, just in case you were wondering. In the early days, and by early days, I mean like 8 and 10 years ago, when people were still leaving negative comments or negative reviews on my podcast on Apple Podcasts. Anyway, in the early days, XPeng didn't have maybe the best reputation. They were accused of stealing or copying Tesla in how their early models looked. Like their first two models, I believe it was their first two models, looked very similar to the Model S and Model X. Not identical, actually. It looked like a Temu Model S and Model X. It was it was an okay looking car, but not to my taste. Like the Model S and Model X looked so much nicer. But XPeng, they made some smart hires. Some of those hires worked for Apple and Tesla, and some of those employees were accused of stealing intellectual property from those companies and giving it to XPeng. I don't know how those cases turned out off the top of my head, so don't quote me on what happened there. But over time, their vehicles have taken on their own unique look. They actually look quite nice. I saw a review of one the other day on YouTube. I can't remember which one it was, but the interior looked great. The exterior was fantastic. So XPeng has really come into its own. But with all that controversy and those accusations behind them, they seem to be kind of cruising along, making their own way. There's a song. Anyway, I'm not going to sing the song. They are, in terms of the Robotaxi stuff, they're moving from the validation phase to the commercialization phase. So we'll see what later this year in 2027 brings for the XPeng Robotaxis. Speaking of Robotaxis, Waymo is introducing a new EV to the fleet. It's made by Chinese EV maker Zeekr, which is owned by Geely. So I see it being called the Waymo Ojai, Ojai, or OJOI. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I see it being called the Waymo Ojai, but in reality, it was built by Zeekr. It's Ojai. And this is an interesting import to say the least, because we already talked about recently that I believe that you can't import connected software vehicles or Chinese connected software vehicles into the US. So how was Waymo able to get around the restrictions on Chinese EVs? Well, first, it's heavily modified by Waymo. Before it is shipped, the Ojai is stripped of its Chinese connected software, so that helps sidestep the restrictions on the band. I imagine that I would imagine that Waymo still has to pay the tariff on the car, which is at 100%. But this is a car that's built for mass production. And then these cars go to the Waymo facility in Mesa, Arizona, and then they're outfitted with, all the software and whatever extra hardware they wanted to put in there. And then they're shipped to San Francisco, LA, and Phoenix for now. Now, I will say I did see one of these driving around the other day. I think it was on Friday. And then also I saw a semi-truck carrying a bunch of these. And I actually got a video with my Tesla because I just happened to be driving behind it. But it's not a great video. It just shows the cars and I don't know. Hardware 3 cameras, maybe not what they could be. And I was facing into the sun on top of that. So I was going to post it, then I decided not to. But these Ojai vehicles, they have these elevator style doors. So they open in the middle and to the left and the right to make it easy to get in and get out of. It's got a pretty large cabin. It's got one screen in the front that you can't touch if you're sitting in the back, and 2 screens in the back. And that allows the riders in the back to adjust audio and different climate controls if needed. And then this is really cool. There's an embedded screen reader for people who are vision impaired. And then it also has embedded braille. So that's neat. Let's see. It has some different compatibility integrated into the seat handles. I'm guessing that's the braille. Let's see. These vehicles are going to use Waymo 6th generation autonomous driving technology, which features fewer sensors. It'll have 13 cameras. Each camera is going to be 17 megapixels in size or resolution, which gives it better resolution, better low light sensitivity, better dynamic range. And then there's going to be 4 LiDARs and 6 radars. So this car is designed to handle inclement weather like snow. So it's better handling that. It's also cheaper. I think it's like $120,000 or something like that, cheaper than what it costs to outfit a Jaguar I-Pace. And yeah, I mean, I've seen one of these driving around, and I happen to be in the area where I'm pretty sure that Mesa warehouse is. So I just happen to be in that area. I think they look cool. They're smaller than you would think, but they definitely seem smaller than the I-Pace. But depending on how it's configured on the inside, which I have not gotten an opportunity to see, this might be a really good option for families trying to get from point A to point B. You know, my kids are in camp right now, and while I can take them on my days off, we're kind of stuck when my wife and I are both working. So having an opportunity to use something like a Waymo to get them from point A to point B would be really helpful right now. But they're not 14. You have to be 14 in order to do that. So now we just manage as best as we can. But at some point in time, this will be a cool option to get them to different places where they need to be. In addition to the Ojais, Waymo is also planning on using Ioniq 5s in the future. So we'll keep an eye on that, and looking forward to Waymo expanding. All right, let's move on to some renewable energy, which we haven't talked about recently. InsideEVs, which is a Canadian energy company, is investing $1.1 billion into the Sequoia Solar Project, which is in Texas. And it's I can't remember, it's just outside of Dallas, I believe, for this one. I said just outside of Tesla because I'm an idiot, but I'm pretty sure it's just outside of Dallas. There are 2 phases to this project, and when it's all finished, it'll be capable of generating 815 megawatts, which is a lot. They recently turned on phase 1, which is currently generating 400 megawatts. And phase 2 will come on later this year and give us another 415 megawatts. Now, this specific project is not for like residential homes or anything like that. It's going to go on to supply electricity to like AT&T, Toyota, PepsiCo, and Donaldson Company, which I thought was a weird mention. But I looked it up. Donaldson Company manufactures like filtration systems and stuff for filtration systems. So cool. Now we know what that company does. In related renewable energy news, Vesper Energy just closed $236 million in financing to build a 201 megawatt solar project in Swisher County, Texas. Now, this is in the northern part of the state, not by Dallas. If you're not from the U.S., Texas is an enormous state. Not as big as Alaska, where I'm from. They're number 2. They're teeny tiny compared to where I'm from, but they are the biggest state in the lower 48. So we'll give them their props there. But anyway, this project is up closer to Amarillo. Amarillo is in a different county than Swisher County, but it's in that same general area. Anyway, the county has about 7,000 people in it, and this solar project called the Nazareth Solar Project will cover around 2,400 acres of private land, and it will supply power to about 53,000 homes. So that's pretty cool. Based on, those numbers, 200-ish megawatts. If the Enbridge that the big old 815 megawatt system, we're looking about 200,000 homes if they actually decided to power residential, but they're not. They're going to power some industrial places, which I think that's needed too. I'm not hating on it. Okay, well, that is our EV news. Now we have our Tesla news. If you want to email me, you can do so. It's Bodie. No, I'm going to leave this in. Because I'm so stupid. Well, that's our EV news. Let's get to our Tesla news. Before we do that, if you want to support the show, you can go to supportkilowatt.com and, sign up and support the show for as little as $1. All the money goes back into the show. None of the money goes into my own pocket for the Patreon. So it pays for things like Riverside, which is what I used for recording my interviews. It pays for like my Gmail, workspace, and all the other things that I need, the Canva and all the other stuff that I pay for to keep the production of the show going. So it's very helpful if you support the show. All right, moving into our Tesla news. Lars Moravi said on a podcast, at the Ride the Lightning podcast, you should, if you're into Teslas, and he does other things now too. He talks about other EVs, but if you're into the electric vehicles, so check out Ryan at the Ride the Lightning podcast. But I don't know him, but I wouldn't hesitate to recommend his show. I think it's good. Anyway, he said that Lars said that Tesla thought about building a Model 3 Plaid. And, doesn't mean that they're going to build a Model 3 Plaid. And I do see that kind of being presented out there and on the internet. It just means that they thought about it. And it might be a strategic mention to kind of gauge interest. Would people be interested in paying for a tri-motor Model 3 Plaid? Now, I wouldn't, because I'm not going to spend that much money on something like that when I could spend much, much less and get 80, maybe even 90% of the same car. But there are other people who have different priorities. So we'll see where it goes. I wouldn't be surprised if they did. Actually, I would be surprised if they did a Model 3 Plaid before they did a Model Y Plaid. But that's just me. All right. By the way, I did not listen to that episode, so go listen to it and let me know what I got wrong. Let's see. Tesla China released a retractable solar shade for the Model Y. So this is to cut down the radiant heat through the glass. This is really cool. It fits just underneath the glass roof. Inside the trim pieces, there are some things that you need to do to get it put in place. And it also takes about, if you're going to do it yourself, it takes 2 people to get it in place. But it's pretty cool because it will, the screen will retract, and then when it's hot outside, you can close it and hopefully save yourself some of that radiant heat. Now in Arizona, when it's really hot outside, I have not noticed my car needing this kind of thing. It would be nice to have when you go into a store, be able to close it, because why heat up the car extra? But in general, the air conditioner works just fine. But I live in a dry heat. Maybe this is a little different when it's more humidity. I don't know. I've not experienced that. But anyway, just something to think about. I do think it's a neat idea. It costs about $220 US. It's only available in China. It looks like it's very well made. And if you don't want to install it, you can pay Tesla to install it for an additional fee. But if this came to the US, I think I would consider it. I don't know if I would actually buy it. I would have to see it in person. All right, let's see. In 2021, Tesla started making efforts to build a factory in India. At least there were rumors starting in 2021. It was actually probably earlier than that they actually started making efforts in this direction. Behind the scenes, but Tesla's given up on its plans to manufacture cars in India. India has a lot of rules when it comes to manufacturing products in their country, like a certain amount of the parts need to be manufactured in the country, and good, bad, or indifferent. Tesla decided to just walk away and pay whatever tariffs they needed to pay or to get that done, to get cars into that country. Okay. This next one is a little bit of a bummer. A Cybertruck owner activated Wade mode and then tried to cross Grapevine Lake in Texas. Now, if you don't know what Wade mode is, it pressurizes the battery pack. It raises the height of the truck so that you can wade across streams and things like that. Gene was on, I think, about a year ago, and he talked about his Cybertruck, and he did some off-roading in it, and he activated Wade mode. It takes a few minutes, and it worked great. Well, Tesla says the max depth that you should be wading through is 32 inches from the bottom of the tire. Obviously, if you are trying to cross Grapevine Lake, which I think is just outside of Austin. Anyway, if you're trying to cross that in a Cybertruck, that's not going to work. If it does work, great. If it doesn't work, it's not going to be covered under warranty, is what I should say. So as they're trying to cross the lake, somehow Wade mode was disabled, or somehow the Cybertruck was disabled, and then it started to take on water. All of the passengers and the driver abandoned ship, and then they had to get emergency services involved. The Cybertruck owner was actually arrested for the attempt, which I was a little bit surprised at first, but there was no valid boat registration, no safety equipment on board. I'm going to imagine some of that safety equipment you would need would be like a fire extinguisher, life vests, that kind of thing. None of that was on board. So yeah, he got arrested and he was in jail for, I believe, a few days. Elon in the past has said that the Cybertruck could cross rivers, lakes, and seas. He actually said that you could possibly, I don't know why I don't want to put the exact words in his mouth, but he talked about crossing the water between Starbase and South Padre Island, which is, I don't know how. I wrote 360 miles. That can't be right. And it can't be 360 kilometers either. So I don't know exactly what that distance is, so don't quote me on it. But anyway, that does, so you knew somebody, when he said that, you knew somebody was going to try. So even though Elon has said that the truck is capable of something many times, because I've heard him say it more than once, crossing a lake actually violates to what it says in Tesla's warranty. So, it's always going to default back to the warranty. It's going to be very difficult to get it without suing the company for it to default back on to Elon or Tesla. So on top of everything else, the owners got arrested. They now have to eat the repair for the truck, and it will likely have a salvage title when it's all said and done. So there's no resale value. So I just want to make perfectly clear, I do not, I'm not making excuses for the person who drove this across the lake. That was clearly a really dumb thing to do. I don't know if they were doing it for the lulz. I don't know if they were trying to do it for a YouTube thing. I don't know if they're creating content, or they just thought it would be fun to do after having a few beers. I don't know what the motivation was, but it was reckless and it was irresponsible. So I'm not necessarily on the side of the driver. However, I certainly feel bad for them because, and take no joy in this, because this is a mistake. This is a bad judgment that's going to cost them tens of thousands of dollars, if not more, on top of somebody could have gotten hurt or died. So I feel bad for them, but I don't feel like that absolves them of responsibility for what they did. But yeah, when when I think about if this was to happen to me or heaven forbid, my kids decided to do something like this, how would I feel? I would feel devastation. I just feel like a huge gut punch. So yeah, this sucks is what I'm saying. All right. If everybody else is jumping off the bridge, that doesn't mean you should jump off the bridge. Moving on, Tesla 14.3.3 is rolling out a new feature, which is reduced driver monitoring requirements, which just means it's going to nag you less to pay attention. I guess it was doing it around 20 to 30 seconds in previous versions of the software. And now that it'll nag you about every minute if you're not paying attention. So it gives you an extra 40 seconds to make a mistake. If you're in Mad Max mode, it actually requires you to pay much closer attention because it's so much more aggressive in the way that it drives. So, yeah, I don't know. You could argue that this is a good sign that we're getting closer to unsupervised full self-driving, or we're getting closer to a catastrophic event or accident when somebody's using full self-driving. One of the two, or both. 10 Tesla owners in China are suing Tesla over full self-driving, and they are claiming fraud. So they are seeking 3.95 million yuan, which is about $583,000 in damages. So each plaintiff paid around $7,800 for their full self-driving between 2019 and 2021. They claim that Tesla staff and Elon Musk assured them that full self-driving was imminent and that it would work on their car. Well, it's obviously come clear that that's not going to happen. So, but these promises were a big motivation for them to buy the car. And instead of getting what they were promised, they're saying that Tesla concealed the hardware limitations in order to sell vehicles. And in China, if you're found guilty or a company's found guilty of fraud, the consumer gets a refund for what they paid, which would be around $7,800, and then they get 3 times or triple damages on top of that. Of course, Tesla is claiming no wrongdoing. So, yeah, we'll keep an eye on it and report back as we hear how it went. Now, in other Tesla China news, Tesla posted on May 20th, 2026, that full self-driving supervised was approved in China. Now, it's weird because Tesla has different names in China for full self-driving. At one point in time, it was like intelligent assist driving. It's not exactly called full self-driving for legal reasons. But it's only available on hardware for vehicles. And at this point in time, you can still make the one-time $9,400 purchase, American dollars. So, yeah, and there is some confusion to some folks in China about how this is being rolled out, and I was not able to fully nail down the confusion. Like there's some different stories. So until somebody writes a better article on that, and I'm not reading Reddit posts about it, we'll just leave it at that. There's some confusion about that. Now, back in the U.S., Ben Gawser, he bought a Model 3 in 2021, paid $10,000 for full self-driving. It became clear that he was not going to get full unsupervised full self-driving like he was promised. So he decided to sue Tesla and was awarded $10,672, which I'm guessing was the cost of the full self-driving plus court costs, if I had to guess. Oh, that other name that I couldn't remember for Tesla, self-driving in China, it's called Tesla Assisted Driving. So, yeah, there you go. It's now called the Tesla Assisted Driving instead of Intelligent Assisted Driving. Let's see. FSD Supervised has been approved in another European Union country, which is Estonia. I've always wanted to visit Estonia. Seems like a cool place. But if you're keeping track, the official list where FSD supervised is approved in the European Union or in Europe, not necessarily the European Union, but in Europe, is the Netherlands, Lithuania, and Estonia. So there we go for that. And then, you know what? I was working off the wrong document. So I'm going to go back here and make sure I was actually working off the old document. So I have other stories to tell, but I'm going to finish this out as if we're doing it normal. And then we'll go into the stories that I missed out on. Sorry about that. Let's see. All right. So this will be our final organized story, and then I'll go through and pick up the stories that I forgot about. Or didn't forget about, but I left out because I opened up the wrong document. In May of 2025, Elon said that Tesla would have over 1,000 robotaxis within a few months. Now, we're 1 year later. How many robotaxis do we have in service? Based on that, if you are saying in May, we're going to have 1,000 in a few months, you would think that we have at least 2,000 now. Right now, we have, according to the Texas Department of Motor Vehicles, Tesla is operating 42 cars offering self-driving rides. And Electrek is reporting that Tesla's only really operating 20 of those cars that are full unsupervised. So I guess the other 22 have a safety monitor in them. Now you might say, well, what about the Bay Area? Well, the Bay Area at one time was operating 107 robotaxis. They did still, and they still have a safety driver behind the wheel. But Electrek is saying that 107 is now down to 9, which seems like a very low number to me. But 107 also seems like a high number to me. So I would imagine that number's closer to somewhere in the middle. But Tesla is definitely still operating with a driver in the seat, because they have not been approved for driverless cars inside of inside of San Francisco or the Bay Area. Now, as they build up their fleet, because I do believe at some point in time Tesla will have a decent sized fleet, as they build it up, Tesla's going to need a location that can kind of manage the fleet, so they can get maintenance done, and a dispatch center, just so the cars just aren't sitting anywhere and everywhere, littered amongst the city. So the Robotaxi, they're building a dedicated maintenance and dispatch center in Irving, Texas, which is there's a lot of Texas stories going on today in the show. This center or facility will be 35,000 square feet. It will do storage, service, and it will have cleaning services. This is similar to the one we talked about in Las Vegas. So I wouldn't be surprised to see these in more cities for sure that are operating robotaxis, Tesla robotaxis. And here we go. Here is our final, until I have to go back and figure out what stories I left out. A new law in Texas will allow companies with Society of Automotive Engineers level 4 autonomy or higher. I'm reading that out, SAE, level 4 or higher, because lots of car companies are using some sort of marketing speak. Like level 2 plus. That's not a thing. It's Society of Automotive Engineers, L4 or higher, to offer commercial driverless transportation. So basically, if your car meets this SAE level 4 driving, autonomous driving, then you can offer commercial robotaxis. So the Society of Automotive Engineers International defines level 4 autonomy as, and I'm reading this as it's written, entire dynamic driving tasks. So the system does all of the steering, braking, accelerating, lane changes, signaling, and monitoring of the driving environment. It'll also have a dynamic driving task fallback. So if something goes wrong, a sensor fails, or there's a road closure, The system itself must be able to handle the situation and achieve a safe outcome, and it cannot depend on a human driver taking over. And then there's operational design domain, which is a set of specific conditions under which the system is designed to operate. So certain roads in certain cities under certain weather conditions or different speeds, that kind of thing. So these companies in Texas need to be able to prove all of that stuff that I just told you, plus I'm sure a bunch of other stuff, in order to operate level 4 robotaxis. Tesla has officially I'm going to highlight certified their FSD software on the Robotaxi fleet as L4 compliant. Now, if you are somebody driving around in a Tesla vehicle and you have full self-driving supervised, you're still technically L2. You have not changed from L2 to L4. The Robotaxi fleet is L4 compliant. Here are the standards, according to the Texas law, that companies need to meet in order to self-certify their vehicles. First one, they need to operate in compliance with Texas traffic laws. They need to maintain proper registration, title, and insurance. That seems like a low bar. They need to be compliant with automated driving systems, or they need to use compliant automated driving systems, and they need to record onboard activity and handle system failures and glitches safely. I don't love that companies have the ability to self-certify. I would feel much more comfortable, and I'm not just saying just Tesla, just like all of the companies. I would feel much more comfortable if there was some sort of certifying board that ran the test and said, "Yep, it passes." And the self-certifying, I don't feel great about. It's not to say that anybody's doing anything wrong, but it does leave room for somebody to do something wrong. And I guess we'll just have to kind of play it by ear and see how that goes.
What would you do if your online store converted 36% more shoppers? You could take 36% more vacation.
Another pina colada?
Yes, please.
Open a new retail location with 36% more square feet.
Fantastic.
Hire 36% more help.
You're hired and you're hired.
Shopify has the world's best converting checkout, up to 36% better than other e-commerce platforms. What you do with those extra sales is up to you. Switch to Shopify today at shopify.com/listen and get a $1 trial. Shopify.com/listen.
Who helps America go farther, fly higher, dream even bigger? People do. Since 1879, our people have been more than a source of energy. They've been a source of progress. Today, that same progress is helping deliver record U.S. energy production, fueling the workers, the makers, the boundary pushers, and risk takers who spark the breakthroughs that move America forward. Learn more about what our people do at chevron.com/USA250.
You've never been one to settle. Stand down or stand still. You're a lifelong learner, energized by excellence. There's a fire inside you can't ignore. You've got competition to outrun, momentum to build on, and your own high standards to meet. Stop now? Not a chance. At Capella University, we help you catch what you're chasing because you've always had the drive. Now, go earn the degree. Capella University. What can't you do? Visit capella.edu to learn more.
You're listening to this podcast, so I know you've got a curious mind. Here's a helpful fact you might not know yet. Drivers who switch and save with Progressive save over $900 on average. They make it super simple. Pop over to Progressive.com, answer some questions, and you'll get a quick quote with coverage options tailored to your choices. Plus, you'll see which discounts you may qualify for, like the online quote discount or savings for paying in full. In fact, 99% of Progressive Auto customers earn at least one discount. See if you could save when you switch to Progressive. You'll feel good about making a savvy choice. Visit Progressive.com and see if you can enjoy a little extra cash back. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $946 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2024 and May 2025. Potential savings will vary.
Okay, let's clean up my mistakes here and talk about some of the stories that I left out. Wasn't very many. Starting off, Volvo. So remember when I told you when we talked about the Waymo stuff where they had to have the Chinese connected software stripped out of their vehicle before they can bring it into the US? Well, Volvo went another way. They got a waiver on their software to be able to bring it into the US. So if you don't know, Volvo is partially owned by Chinese company Geely. And Volvo they got permission to sell their connected cars in the US starting with model year 2027. So I'm going to read Volvo's statement here. And I'm actually going to read the second part of the statement because the first part of the statement is just basically whereas and therefore is and hereas is. So let's read the second part. Under the rule, Volvo Car USA was required to follow a process with the Department of Commerce to obtain a specific authorization for the continued import and sale of connected cars in the U.S. The process is carried out on a case-by-case basis, and the issuance of a specific authorization follows constructive discussion with the U.S. Department of Commerce and other U.S. officials regarding Volvo Cars' governance, technology, and data security. So basically, they proved their case that they weren't going to be spying on anybody. And I tend to believe that Volvo's probably not spying on anybody. If you're wondering if this affects the Polestar, Polestar is partially owned by Volvo, it does not. Polestar is working on getting similar approvals that Volvo just got. But as of right now, they don't have it. So does this mean that other Chinese car companies can appeal to the U.S. and get around this ban? Ban? I don't know why I keep saying banned. Ban? I guess it does. But it doesn't mean that U.S. will grant them approval. And it also, there's still 100% tariffs on Chinese vehicle imports. So I'm not sure that that's going to be a wise use of your time. All right. Okay. So that was the one for EVs. Let's go back down to the Tesla stories here. Oh, European sales. So we talked a lot in the beginning of the year about European sales of Teslas being down in 2025. In 2026, Tesla registrations in all of Europe, which includes non-European Union countries, was up 46.5% year over year in April. And if we just look at EU countries, the Tesla sales or registrations were up 67% year over year. So this pretty decent growth. It marks the third consecutive month of growth in Europe for Tesla. So I'm just going to run down a couple of things here. May was a strong month for Tesla year over year. We're looking at registrations that are up 655% in France. They are up 29% in Norway. Norway has pretty decent saturation of EVs, and Tesla's the leader in Norway anyway. 71% in Sweden, up 136% in Denmark, up 113% in Spain, up 350% in Portugal. So listen, these are great numbers in terms of signaling a rebound for Tesla and Europe. And the percentages sound impressive. And technically they are. However, we're not like all total with all of the numbers that we talked about being up 600% and 350% and all that stuff. They still only sold around 15,000 cars in April. That's not nothing. Like that, I'm not taking away from that, but it's not hundreds of thousands of cars. It's 15,000. Like Sweden sold 858 in May, and France, they sold 5,446. And then the rest of those countries fell in between that. And honestly, most of them were closer to what Sweden registered in May of 2026 than they were closer to what France registered in 2026. So yeah, just keeping that in the back of your head here. I just want to go over this a little bit more to make sure I didn't miss anything. We talked about Estonia. We talked about Tesla's new service center or Robotaxi center. Yeah, I mean, that's it. So overall, that was like 33 stories all together, or 33 different articles to make up today's episode. I do not know if this will actually if every single story will fit in the show notes for today's episode. We'll take a look. Well, I'll try, or the show description. It might be too big. This is definitely going to test Simplecast's a system in terms of show notes. If you want to email me, you can do so. It's Bodie, Bodie, at 918digital.com. You can find me on X at 918digital, although I'm not on there very often. I'm usually on LinkedIn, I'm just Bodie Grimm on LinkedIn. That's BODIE GRIMM. And I think that's it. Did I say you can email me, Bodie at 918digital.com? Anyway, it's been a long show. It took me 2 days to write the show notes, 2 long days to write the show notes, and I don't know how many hours to record this. What time is it right now? It's 4:28. I started recording at 1:30 and I had a meeting at 2, and then I picked up recording again at 3, so it's 4:30. So I've been here for a while. Doesn't seem like that long. All right, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Next episode on Friday, we're going to talk to David, and I really think you're going to enjoy that episode. He's going to tell us about his Leap Motors C10. He purchased that. He's living in New Zealand. And I hope everybody has a great week, and I will talk to you soon.
There's a fire inside you can't ignore. Stand still? Not a chance. You're a lifelong learner who's come this far. Now, we're here to help you keep going further. Capella University. What can't you do? Visit capella.edu to learn more.
RingCentral's AI receptionist uses voice AI to answer on the first ring, so you'll never miss a call again. In just a few minutes, you can personalize your own AI receptionist to answer questions, route calls, schedule appointments, and even send texts in multiple languages. Plus, it's easy to scale. Create unlimited AI receptionists across any phone system. It's all powered by one reliable platform for effortless AI communications. See for yourself at ringcentral.com. RingCentral, voice of your business.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.